I
Ah,
did
ah,
press the
we're
button.
here. Welcome, everybody. I don't know who's here, but thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I'm
So
losing my mind.
where did it go?
I lost it. How would I know that?
Oh, right. I didn't think this through. Where
Oh,
is
man.
your mind commonly found when you recover it from the last time you lost it?
Well, so recently I've been like trying to remember how my childhood fiction stories, like the rules of their universes. So Pokemon, I know that like the back of my hand, right? Like that
Mhm.
was a lore IP universe that I knew everything about. Yu-Gi-Oh, I knew everything about. I've been trying to remember how the heck Digimon worked. Like, why did they evolve?
Oh.
Like, what was the whole overarching goal? Like, what was their like call to action? I just feel like they just got
Well,
transported into the digital world sometimes, and I never knew how.
yeah, and the evolutions are like so weird and whack. And my
And
latest exposure is from Jada Animations because she did a whole
okay,
series where she played the most painful Digimon video game known in the whole entire series.
oh, that's so
Or
exciting.
maybe it
Please
was
send me
supposed to
that
be the best,
afterwards.
but it turned out to be like really, really bad.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, which is like endless puzzle solving. But yeah, we have friends joining us.
yeah. Thank y'all for
Ivy,
coming.
Captain,
Gwen, do we have a show
Quinn.
for you today?
Yeah.
Ooh, I
All
forgot.
right. You didn't do it. Oh, and then I also didn't play the intro song
Oh yeah. Oh god.
as usual.
Oh, good. Oh. New flavor. Not my favorite. It's like, all right. Quick Celsius review. Fantasy
Ooh.
vibes. It's cotton candy flavored, I think. Oh, sparkling mandarin marshmallow is what the can says.
Mm-hmm.
First taste, not my fave.
Thanks for joining us, Maryam's
Oh,
music and Nona Smalley. Thanks for
yeah,
joining us. Yeah, like
dude.
so what we revealed so far. Oh, and Dalia, thanks for joining us.
Hell yeah.
What we revealed so far is that you have lost your mind in the
Yeah.
world of Digimon as you're
Yeah.
trying to recall the lore.
Yeah, and I cannot. So, well, I'll that's my problem to solve, but that's I think where my mind is right now. What about you? How are you doing today?
Um, and my mind is well, at least my mind is not lost in a Digimon lore situation. I've been thinking a lot about our lore.
Oh yeah? What about it?
um, well,
I
I've
can't
been
get
thinking about
comfy.
how. Oh, pardon.
I can't get comfortable. I'm trying to find a position. Sorry, you've been thinking about how ignore me. I'm like I'm on one right now.
Well,
So
but for those who are listening, Cameron became a much shorter stature person for a second, and I was mildly alarmed. So I was thinking about how to, since our theme is to simplify, right? Like right now,
yeah.
there's so much that we can do, but I think our lore hasn't been a simple thing I could say, and I think you have sent me on a mission to come up with the one word elevator pitch for the both of us.
Oh yeah, that's true. Let me okay, so this is a little trick that I don't think I invented, but I can't remember who did it. So let's just pretend that I invented it. But so when I'm trying to explain stuff, it's very hard to like have a great explanation like come fully forth like beautifully formed like in terms of like a paragraph about what you're trying to explain. For
Mm-hmm.
startups, it's like the value prop for your startup, you're pitching investors, customers, all these different things. Like a rhetorical device or like a literary device that or tool that I've used to great effect is, before you come up with a paragraph, come up with like one word that you're trying to get across, and that's surprisingly hard. And so once you get that one word, what you gotta you do one sentence about it, using like, you don't have to explicitly use that word, but you're communicating the same thing as that word. And then once you get that one sentence, then and only then you can do the paragraph. So we've been doing that exercise for ourselves with different people that might like our show. So Kristen, you've been hitting a wall with that.
I've been hitting a wall, but I realized I've been doing it backwards. Now that
You've been
you're explaining it, like I thought you meant write the paragraph first, then distill it down to one sentence, then wait, what?
That's the opposite. That's the
Oh,
opposite. That's the wrong way. That's the hard way.
This is just like every day in our conversations. Like you would always think that okay, these people talk every day. You would think it's such a simple task that the other person will walk away with the correct instructions. But I think
Well,
this is why. I guess in the military, do they make you repeat what the other person said to confirm?
Usually you do what's called a back brief. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of the times, like I'll do this to you where like, hey, I heard this. This is the
Mm-hmm.
thing that's gonna happen. And so a back brief is really, really useful pretty much in every circumstance. Like I have never made somebody do a back brief and
Mm-hmm.
regretted it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because so I had a poetry professor in college, and she had this like she had a really like great way with explaining hard to explain concepts. And she described between every person, there's
Mm-hmm.
this interpersonal gulf,
Mm-hmm.
and it's this chasm that like you might know something perfectly and completely in your head,
Mm-hmm.
and even if you explain it to the best of your ability, there's still this like space between you and somebody else, and like figuring out how to cross that space is the challenge of poetry. um I use that as a mental model when like figuring out, hey, go here and do this thing. Like making somebody say that back to you is a way of checking if your message got across that interpersonal gulf.
Yeah. Well, hi, Hen. Hi, Abu Bakar, and thanks for joining us.
Also, I want to address the allegations, Kristen, before we get into these bangers.
Oh, I
Ivy,
wasn't sure whether you wanted to bring that up.
Ivy, I am not high. I'm just very tired right now. So we're rolling. All
And
right,
I
let
think
me get
his
this screen
lighting it
set up.
makes him look redder than he really is.
Yeah,
So need to adjust that.
this was the lighting that you picked, Kristen.
Oh, but it looks different every day. You gotta adjust it.
Hmm. Maybe it's like the white shirt making it like reflect it more. So I'm like steeped in red. Oh no, let's do this live. All right, chat. We're gonna do three options and pay
Mhm.
attention, and then you're gonna tell me which one to do. Option one is this one. Option two is this one. Option three is this one. All right, go ahead and pick the ones that you want.
Yeah, like
Gwen, I'm not surprised.
no energy drink today. Oh no, Huggle Monster, you missed it. There is the Fantasy Vibes Celsius. We're
It's
not
so
sponsored,
bad.
but we're open to a Celsius sponsor. And it
Hit me
tastes like
up.
cotton candy.
God, it's really bad today. You know,
Oh,
I'm
we're
I'm
not
gonna
getting the sponsor.
no, I mean it's the best drink that I've had this morning. Okay, let's do this banger. All right, thank you, Dahlia, for voting. All right, so this is from
Hi,
Nat
Law, you're never
Eliason.
late.
This one's from Nat Eliason. Today was the first day I really felt the benefits of my 5,000 words a day experiment last month. Without trying particularly hard, I ended up hitting 4,237 words, an unthinkable number a few months or a year ago. Dude, what do you think about that?
So he made this app. Do you know that?
Yes, I downloaded it. We're probably not going to get a sponsor from them either because I didn't really like it when I tried it. But I haven't tried it in like 2 months, so it could be a lot better now. I don't know. I'll probably re-download it since he's on Farcaster and I'm kind of fanboying about it.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh. So like I was like really amazed because I was like, I have not seen this app before, but he made it himself to track his own writing. So
Mm,
yeah, it's like kind of like what gets well, I don't okay, that controversial Peter Drucker quote, like what gets measured gets managed kind of way. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
this is really inspirational. Yeah, if you track the thing, you're
Is
more
that
likely to meet
controversial?
the goal. Yeah, I feel like a lot of Peter Drucker things are controversial because
Yeah.
it quickly gets distorted by middle management types to fit whatever they want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then also like a lot of quotes are taken out of context, is my understanding.
Yeah, that's true. The like my personal experience with that quote
Hmm.
is that whatever the incentive is the behavior that's going to like appear. And so if the thing that you're measuring gets reported on in every meeting and it's a
Hmm.
stupid thing to report on, like it's still going to be the thing that people are optimizing for, unfortunately. Um I really like this banger because it's
Hmm.
like as as good of an example of simplicity in the feed or simplifying in the feed that like I've found in terms of like associating with productivity, especially for creators, which is like a lot of the people that are near and dear to our hearts. And so sorry, we got 2 votes for number 2. So now I'm like debating my choice.
Because you are on
of the
number
light.
3 right now, right? Lighting wise.
No, I'm on number 1.
Oh,
This
that's
is number
number
1. This is number 1. This was the red face one or red eye
Oh,
one.
okay, okay,
Number
okay.
2 is cold lighting, and number 3 is
Oh.
kind of like a neutral. This is
Yeah,
warm,
yeah,
cold.
yeah.
Yep.
Well,
And
I'll match
so
you. Yeah, I'll be a bit a little cold. There you go.
anyway, have you ever written 4,000 words in a day?
Yes, because there
Oh,
was
yeah.
a time when Kristen did NaNoWriMo pretty like religiously, asterisk. In the sense that she will do the first few days of NaNoWriMo and then give up. So
Okay.
on those first few days, yes, I did write a lot.
I like writing a lot. It's also important to like note that like Nat is a professional writer. He's a published author of like multiple books. He's been a creator on the internet for a long time. This
Mhm.
is not, hey, I'm working my normal job and also cranking out 4,200 words. Although
Right,
some
right.
people
I'll
do
make
do
up
that.
for you this in his app by showing everyone his book.
Oh yeah,
Crypto
definitely
Confidential.
check that out.
Yes. This is us. You see? You see?
Yeah, on fire in a good way. So kudos to Nat for getting that out. But like, okay, why is this a cool simplification thing? He just set a goal to write 5,000 words every day for a month. I've done like an equivalent thing of like putting out an essay one day every day for a month. By the end of it, I was cranking out writing like pretty quickly and easy. Like it's never easy to finish a piece of work, or it's rarely easy. Different people are different.
Mhm.
But like it was much easier on day 31 than it was on day 1 for me personally. And so like I really like embracing these stupid simple goals where you just like do the thing that you want, like set the goal that lets you emulate the behavior that you want to eventually achieve. It's obviously a lot harder than just posting about it. I don't know, Kristen, I'm all over the place today. Do you have any other thoughts on this?
No, I didn't think you were all over the place. That was really clear.
Dope. Let's move on. Pixel art. I love pixel art, Kristen. This is from Scheipeder. I'm gonna say go follow them if you haven't. They're I don't think that they're actually how long have they been on Forecaster? Let's check real quick. Ba, 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 ba. Oh my goodness, this was a mistake, Kristen. I shouldn't have done this. I don't know. Okay,
Why
we'll
is your
figure out.
internet so slow?
I don't know because I don't pay enough, I guess. But so brilliant artists, go follow them. They did this like cute little pixel promenade like through the park thing yesterday, and they didn't particularly like it, but they posted it anyway.
Mhm.
And they posted it because they like the different techniques that they used in making the pixel art, and I think that's really really cool, and a good lesson for creators that like to complicate their lives by like making stuff and then having fear of posting it because it's not as good as they wanted.
Oh my god, I totally have a project like that right now that you don't even know about.
You have another thing?
It's a one thing that I promised like Jacob JRF that I'll do. Where oh that's so nice of him to say you look great with all 3.
Thank you.
Which is like a video project of my misadventure in trying to procure and eat gefilte fish. But it's not the kind in a jar. It's the frozen kind that's much harder to find. And I've been wanting to post this video and also do a voiceover, like making an analogy between my misadventure with getting this gefilte fish and his progress on programming from not knowing how to program at all to now making Atlas and like this no-code mini app situation.
What is happening right now? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Gefilte fish?
Yeah.
What is happening?
Which,
Okay.
you know, like spoiler alert, it tastes great. It tastes like, you know, Chinese or Vietnamese fish cake. I think there's a lot of cross-cultural like comparisons that can be made here.
Okay. I'm not a fish stan. I like salmon, as you know, most lifter types do, but I'm not gonna throw shade on the thing that doesn't necessarily like that I
Yeah,
love.
don't yuck my yum.
I will not explicitly do that. That's crazy, and I want to get into it. So let's have a conversation about gefilte fish later.
Yes. But yeah, like I love like showing like because it's always like this thing where you if you want to do like build in public
Yep.
sort of thing. There's always this like self-consciousness of like, oh, if it's something I don't want to launch, then I tend to throw it into the trash, you know?
It's gonna feel bad posting the thing that isn't perfect.
Right. Or isn't directionally where I want to go anymore.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm gonna plug the creators channel on Farcaster right now.
Mhm.
I like fish. I think
PH
I
Fish for those
yeah,
who
yeah,
are not
yeah.
listening.
Yeah. There's a comment about being a fish the bandstand. I had a jam band phase actually. Um, and so I appreciate the art of the jam band. But it is not the like because I'm a musician, right? And like I think any musician at some point kind of is like, oh, wouldn't it be sick if you just like played the instrument for, like hours? Um, and that's the music. But anyway,
It's like
so
the original live streaming.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have a strong enough opinion on whether to agree or disagree with that. But anyway, let's keep this train a moving with someone who's in our chat right now, Gwyn. This is Gwyn's desk right now, as of 17 hours ago, and it is they leave her just enough room to move her mouse.
How considerate of the gang.
There's so many cats. Gwyn, drop how many cats there are. I can count
Something like
1,
a
2,
good
3,
cat
4,
post.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10.
I like how some of them look like your cats.
Yeah, this one looks like
on.
Remy.
Yeah.
This one looks like Remy right here. It's so sweet. Although it might be shorter hair. Remy and Rue are long hair cats. But they might just be young too, because the fur was shorter when they were young.
Yeah. Oh, I like this Tory Stories comment about the fish. I
About fish?
purposely avoided PH Fish because someone told me I would love it. I don't like being told what I would like.
Tori, we have a
joking.
whole stream about that. We have a whole show about being reflexively rebellious. I forget which one we did it on. We got to go through and like catalog those, and we can make a little search engine for it.
You got to use the AI to do that.
Yeah. Well, that'll be a code project. But okay, so the problem with being reflexively rebellious, and this is my conclusion about myself, because this is how I like live my life. The problem of being reflexively rebellious is that you are just as constrained as if you were to listen to everything somebody else tells you to do. It's just like orthogonal to like the path that they want you to do. And so it's not as helpful.
Yeah. All right. There's 20 cats in the Curious Hermit's hermitage.
Casual 20 bomb of cats. No big deal. That sounds like heaven. All right. So this one is mine. But I stole it. So I want to show it off. For the audio listeners, it is a sad clown in the corner. It's the guy in the corner meme. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. It's a pretty good format. And it's a bunch of doctors in the crowd, and they are talking about this sad clown in the corner. And they recommend the great clown Pagliacci is in town tonight. He should go see the great clown because he's sad. Kristen, why is this funny?
It's the classic, great clown Pagliacci goes to the therapist situation, right? Where it's like, oh, I can't help myself is the meme. I do like how this is using the they don't know format correctly, and that the people are also speaking. I've noticed, actually, some folks in the chat, I've noticed that when you use this meme, you don't have the other people speaking, and I feel like that's only half the meme. So this is like at least at 100% of the meme.
Have people in the chat said that before? Or are they criticizing me? What's happening?
No, I feel like I've seen some folks post like, the meme, but they only have the guy in the corner talking and not the other two parties who are normally dancing.
Yeah. Sometimes they're like set pieces instead of participating.
Correct. But this is such a pedant thing that I'm like, who cares?
We can invert that and say the beauty of remixing is that you don't have to be 100% faithful to the source format.
Yes.
All right. But this is funny because it is an internet joke from the ages retold. And like the beauty is in the simplicity of like, hey, the clown should be the solution to your problems because you're sad, but in fact, the clown has the problem. And so it's like an
Mhm.
inversion of the expectation. And I love, love when like the same format just gets like a little bit of a tweak. I've never really self-analyzed why I like that so much. That's interesting.
Because we are the clown.
That is definitely true. This, like I feel like this a lot of the time. Because I'm gonna sip this Celsius and then make another gross face for comic relief. All right, let's roll to this last one here. The whole post I don't really care about. I just care about this part. It's a classic XKCD. If anyone in the chat has not heard of XKCD, go to xkcd.com, all letters, and go lose 12 hours of your life right now. But it's basically a 3-panel webcomic,
I
or
wonder
in
if
this
there is
case,
a place where you can find the classic XKCD. Because if you go right now, like you would never get through the backlog.
that sounds like a good opportunity for a Seymour page.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, like this is one of the classic ones. But I think it's also like, of course, like, there's all these like USB and all these like like designed by committee situations where standards proliferate. But I think in
Yep.
terms of like the everyday person and to-do lists, this often happens. Like, as you know, like when I make our SOPs, somehow like they will keep expanding. And I often think of this comic of like, oh gosh, I just created another like loop of things that we need to do. So let's not do that.
Yeah, it's the quintessential like, hey, let's simplify things by making them more complicated, which I think Gwyn
Mhm.
referenced earlier in the chat. How do we not do this, Kristen?
I think it's like the ruthlessly prioritizing loops. And also,
Mm.
I think there's like, why are there so many standards, right? It's because everyone wants to be the lead, right? Everyone wants to be the standard. So it's like, what is the ego involved in using someone else's standard or to follow a playbook?
I don't know if I fully
Mhm.
agree with that,
Yeah.
because standards are usually made by nerds.
Mm, mm, mm.
And nerds are typically motivated, like they do have ego, but it's like a different version of ego than we typically think of in terms of like, I don't know, capitalism, right?
Mhm.
Or like the ego in like the market economy is like, I should be able to decide everything because I'm the best, and there's like power accrual and whatever. Nerds fight because they genuinely think that they're right, which is like a
Mhm.
little bit different of a spin on it. Side note,
Oh, you're right.
if you want to see examples of this, go look up electrical engineering standards up on like old forums.
Mhm.
Dude, the amount of nerd fights people get into on like especially hardware engineering, but like also like software code forums too. It will make your eyes bleed. Like, good for them. I love that people are passionate about stuff, but it is like
Mhm.
really tough to listen to like in this case, like, hey, databases should work like this. And then somebody else has like an opinion that is 98% on the same page. And
Mhm.
then the 2% difference is where like most nerd fights happen, which is really funny to me.
Oh, 100%. And I also pulled up this comment by Dark Chris. Hello, watching from International Space Station. I really
What?
admire Dark Chris because you always say this, and I never understood like the
I
remarkable consistency. And also, why
I
are you in a space station? I have so many
appreciate you,
questions.
bud. Insane. I love it.
Yes.
All
And
right.
Ivy says regulatory capture. How about the standards?
Expand on that, please. All right. Speaking of Ivy,
Mm-hmm.
ba-ba-da-da.
Yeah, so we want to help bring awareness to Ivy's latest new launch. So she has been a coding genius and has developed a new mini app for Farcaster. It's
Woo.
called Basscaster and not Basscaster. Nothing to do with the fish. And so
That's a
imagine
shame.
something like a tavern or what's the other one? Farhouse? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like or Bura, but you can do it right within Farcaster. And somehow like this is magically Ivy has made audio work in
Oh,
terms of
really?
like yeah. So you just
I
click
didn't know
it
that.
and you're immediately dropped into a space where you can talk to the other person. So this
that's
is
sick,
because like
actually.
I've been working in like in the media space for a long time for these like major networks in Canada and stuff. So I feel like she knows a lot about this kind of thing. So yeah, do
Ivy,
please check it out. It's gonna be debuted on Wednesday, October 16th at 11 a.m. PDT. And then if you go to Farcast Her, you should be able to see the cast and you can see your local time and have a calendar invite as well. So
that's sick. Ivy, I'm gonna DM you about audio in frames because that was like one of my biggest blocker to really pushing hard with musicians on Farcaster. So that's really interesting. So I'm gonna DM you about that. All right, and
yeah.
with that, let's get on to simplifying. Kristen,
What's
talk to me.
complicated for you right now?
So I'm gonna be annoying and ask: are you asking like what's complicated, or are you asking what's complex? Because like I have
No, I'm
strong
asking what's
opinions.
complicated. I'm not
Okay.
asking what's complex.
Okay. So what's complicated for me right now is making the Rube Goldberg machine of my life and the multiple pieces of it work sequentially in a way that like the Rube Goldberg machine actually completes every day. Because I'll like kick off the domino and it'll like go down the hill and then it'll kick off like 2 or 3 different things and then like some of them sputter out, some of them kind of make it to the so like I'm not like closing the loop on a lot of the things that I'm trying to do right now. What about you?
Um, for me, my Rube Goldberg machine is, which sounds, I mean, if it's Rube Goldberg, actually is really good because that means everything is going like
Right?
everything is knocked out. So it's more like disconnected Rube Goldberg machines that need to connect together. Um, it's me doing this with you, me doing consulting stuff, and trying to figure out how to balance my energy and focus to make it all work. I feel like there's an ideal version that I've conjured in my mind of what I can actually do, but
Mm.
that's not matching the reality of Kristen's actual energy capacity and ability to focus.
So what parts of what parts mismatch?
Um, the allocation of time and like also um I think overall, my life is made more complicated in that perhaps I'm too ambitious, said in a nice way, but maybe I'm just really bad at like time estimates or something. Like I always feel like I am a little bit behind, right? I think we've talked about this theme in a long time. And now I feel like, oh, our to-do list has gotten really complicated because there's too many different things that we could possibly do. And also market conditions have changed. So these tasks need to change.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple different threads in there. How do you
Which I think
think
is a common creator problem.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it's a creator problem, it's an entrepreneur problem, it's like a normal life problem, right? Because
Mhm.
we all have too much to do and not enough time to do it. If we like
Could you hear that open the window just now?
no, I could not.
Oh, okay.
You were silent.
Okay, good.
Um, the way I like to explain it to people,
Mhm.
it is a little bit different, but I think I'll misuse the quote here. Like I tell a lot of people transitioning out of the military, hey, you can do anything that you want, but you can't
Mhm.
do everything that you want because you just like the paths you would need to take to do different anythings don't work together sometimes.
Mhm.
Most of the time, frankly.
Right. And then like pulling referencing the Nate Eliason like the purity of writing 5,000 words a day is actually what I want to do.
The
But in
single tier.
reality, right? It goes back to our perfect routine.
Yeah.
It's almost like the perfect routine is like you just do X amount of this task a day. But in
Yeah.
reality, like when we wrangle the things that we have to do, it's not as beautiful.
Okay. So that's an interesting question. What makes the act of doing something like beautiful to you?
To me, it is consistency. And I think it has to do with like the perception of simplicity rather than the actuality of simplicity. I think like if I were able to categorize my tasks as cleanly as like, I'll write 5,000 words a day, and like I would do like X creative tasks a day, then that would be better. And right now I don't actually do that. I have a to-do list that I check off, of course, but then
Yeah.
it feels like a mishmash of things. And I understand theoretically they should all ladder up to strategies and etc. But
Yeah.
I think observing you and I, like in our everyday actuals, like that doesn't feel as clean, and therefore we feel way more messy than the reality, which is actually that we're not messy.
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
relatively speaking, I agree with you. The I want to unpack. Relatively speaking, I agree with you as a statement because I
Mhm.
don't think it communicated what I wanted it to communicate, but it's like funny. What I hear from you though is there's like, hey, these are the things that I'm doing that I might not necessarily like feel a level of satisfaction from that I wish I
Mhm.
did.
Mhm.
But there's also the backwards looking retroactive narrative crafting of your
Mhm.
activities that
Right,
you
right.
also feel bad about, which is like different.
Well, I'm working on not feeling bad. I'm just pointing out that I think the way I'm perceiving it is not simple and straightforward.
Yeah. Okay, so I like using other people's mental models or like trying them out to see if they work for me.
Mhm.
There is like the obvious one with simplification is like you have to say no to more things, like as a concept. Because if
Mhm.
you try to do everything, you're not going to really get any of the things that you want done, at least to the extent that you want them to do. Add in the fact that stuff takes like multiple days, weeks, months, maybe years to
Mhm.
accomplish. Like shit's just hard. What do you think about I believe it's a Warren Buffett ism. Maybe it's a Charlie Munger ism that he got from Warren Buffett that
Mhm.
is like, hey, write down the 10 most important things that you're going to do,
Mhm.
or that you want to do, want to accomplish, whatever, and then circle the top one and don't do any of the other ones. What do you think about that?
Oh, that is probably a Mungerism, right? Because he's the no man. So so this seems aligned with that. Uh I yes, asterisk. I'm very wary about taking advice from Buffett and Munger types because I feel like they're doing so at a place of privilege. It's sort of
Yeah,
like,
Honeybee.
they start off as like they would never starve to death, like their
Yeah.
families are well to do, etc. So if you already have that baseline of safety, then I feel like you are able to take your time in making decisions of how you spend your time. And I think that's the issue with the poverty trap, right? Because like people
Yeah.
who are struggling, like you end up having to try so many random things because you just don't know which one will work out for you, and you
Yeah.
don't have the baseline, the downside covered.
Yeah. I mean, I fully agree in that the like luxury of people in the upper crust of like whatever
Mhm.
ladder that they're on generally have a lot more control over their time, like mostly because of the money that they have. Assuming that this was an anecdote that
Mhm.
was like born from, let's say, like the 80s, which is like
Mhm.
kind of more when they're in their journeyman phase of investing. Like they still have they had success there.
Mhm.
Do you think it would still be useful?
I agree with it. Like that's why I try to say no to a lot of things. I appear to say no to a lot of things, but
Would you
obviously it's still not enough,
would you say
right?
no to this week? If you can share.
No, what do you mean? Oh, what I say no to this week?
Yeah.
Um I well, after the show, I'll tell you what I'm saying no to.
We
So
got a
yeah,
big
after the
planning
show,
session
Cameron,
after
I
the
usually
show.
have our after action review and also talk about the strategy of the show, and tactics. And I'm gonna propose a bunch of no's after our show to
Hell
simplify.
yeah. I love
I,
it.
yeah, yeah. So in that sense, I say no to a lot of things. I've said no to a full time job. I think that is the biggest no I've had to say so far.
Gotcha.
Like,
Congrats.
thanks. But it's almost like I cannot not do this show. and like a creator stuff. And I feel like when maybe I was younger, I can maybe pull off a full-time job and do this, but I feel like my energy levels, I just can't do all of that. So that is the
Yeah.
hardest no I've had to say.
Mm. Mm. That's
I
real.
wonder
And
if
like,
with those in the chat, like, do you relate to this whole saying no to a full-time job business?
yeah,
'Cause I
or
feel like
like,
a lot of people on Farcaster are self-employed or otherwise.
yeah, or like, what's a no that you had to say this week that you kind of feel conflicted about? Because I think like
Mhm.
the trademark of a good no is that you feel bad about it, or not like bad, but
Oh,
like
really?
I do.
Oh, I thought the trademark was a good no was it would feel easy.
No, absolutely not.
Oh,
It's
okay,
easy
then
to
I feel
say
a
no
lot
to
less
easy
then I feel
things.
less conflicted about my conflictions.
It's so easy to say no to obvious no's, Kristen. Like, the
Oh.
hard part is staying focused on the things that you really care about when there are multiple good or plausibly good options.
So many.
Yeah. Like,
I
obviously,
think I have to say no to a lot of my spontaneous ideas.
yeah.
Like that is the blessing and the curse of an idea generator type, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so many great ideas. Well, they're not great. They're just like unexecuted and therefore great, and that the potential has not been fulfilled.
The
But
the
like saying no
serene
to my own random ideas is the hardest thing. In fact, I don't know what you noticed. I sent you some things on Telegram and I deleted them before you woke up because I was like, no, we don't have time to pursue that.
the the serene beauty of being an idea guy. Like,
I know,
ne-
I know.
never having to execute and get your hands dirty with the gritty reality of making shit happen.
I've always
No,
wondered though,
that's
like I know
real.
there's some people who like are they're not idea generators, they're executing type people. And I think
Yep.
this has been thought there's been so many attempts of idea markets, right? Of like
Yeah.
yeah, and then they never work. Um
Um, so like, their VGR actually has like a really good. I mean, I think it's a good essay about
yeah.
his interpretation of founder types versus operator types versus like writer types.
Mhm.
Dude has very like opinionated view on the world, of course,
Mhm.
but the interesting part to him was that he emphatically puts himself not in the operator camp. Like,
Mhm.
he doesn't have the dogged optimism of continuing to do the thing, like regardless of like what the outcomes are in the near term. And
Mhm.
he writes about that, I think, pretty well. The the challenge of no for me is partially this like, ooh, actually in the army we call it the good idea fairy. The good idea fairy comes by and then like sprinkles some magic little dust on your head and then floats away, and then you're like, no, it would be good if we just added in an extra training event on Friday. Like, that would be
Mhm.
sick, because then we could get this extra thing done that we didn't plan on, and because
Mhm.
stuff's going well on Tuesday. Everybody hates the good idea fairy. Sometimes righteously, sometimes like, people just don't want to do extra stuff. The problem with the good idea fairy is that usually the ideas you get from the good idea fairy like aren't living in the context from when you made your like longitudinal plans. Like, unless you're really really good at
Right, and then
map
also
thinking.
the good idea fairy never accounts for the amount of time and also the opportunity cost of doing that good idea.
Yep. It's easy to see the positive outcomes of the good idea fairy. It's another step or two to figure out what the downsides are.
Mhm.
I think I have the same affliction as you. I perhaps have, at least in our particular relationship, a little bit more I stop myself from sending stuff sometimes, because I know that part of our social contract is like me like pulling back on some of the stuff that like you've talked, because you've asked me to do that in some ways. Does that make sense?
I don't know what you're referencing. I'm pretty sure
Uh,
like I'm supposed to know, but I don't.
big picture, you can't
Uh-huh.
have two people with good idea fairies like doing that all the time. You just can't. right?
Oh,
And like
right. Yeah, we've established that you're the no man and I'm the idea.
like
No, I don't.
it,
Is that okay? I don't want to
yeah,
like like
no,
I
it's
would like to publicly declare that I would like your good idea fairy to visit sometimes, and then I can be the no person. I need to practice saying no. You need to give me opportunities to practice.
that's fair. But it's also like I've been various versions of like one or the other in a bunch of different roles in my career. And so like I'm
Mhm.
super comfortable playing both. It's just kind
Mhm.
of like left to my own devices, I will
Mhm.
have, you know, whiteboards full of stuff to do every hour, right? And so
Right.
like the reality is like you need to like shut up and code or shut up and do the work to
Mhm.
make the ideas happen. And so like
Right. So I think one good thing is that now that I'm picking up client work again, I'm
yeah,
actually retraining my mind to be better about saying no because I think a good
hell yeah.
consultant is actually the no person. And to like really narrow down the
Yeah.
actions and the possible outcomes. So I feel like I can see that part of my brain's waking up and it's starting to bleed over to the okay banger Kristen, which
Cool.
helps. Yeah.
Cool. Like, you know, none of this is knocking the ideas person because I
Mhm.
think everything incredible has come from that moment of like,
Mhm.
oh, what if we could do it this way? And so like I would never like want to diminish the value of that existing. It just
Mhm.
has to have that like yang of, oh, but how are we going to make it happen? Because if you
Mhm.
don't do that part, it never actually shows up. And so
Mhm.
kind of like bringing it back to simplifying, I feels like we both believe a big part of simplifying things in your life revolves around this idea of saying no to potentially like really compelling things. Is that fair?
Correct. And I wonder, this is related to I'll talk to you after the show. Like the other part of saying no that I think is really tricky is okay, for example, you have a writing streak you want to meet that's like, 5,000 words a day or whatever. Or let's just say you started posting a video a day and then you realize that they are a little off course. And then like having to say no to a streak, I think is the hardest thing because it
Dopamine?
conflicts, right?
Yeah, dopamine is such a cruel mistress.
Well, the thing is, I don't even get dopamine from maintaining a streak, but it's more like saying no to a promise. Like, it's sort of like one of those
Mm.
things where, like, as you know, as a creator type, it's like you practice doing something, right? And it may not
Yeah.
always be good, or you may not always get the feedback you want, and
Yep.
then like saying no to continuing because you want to pivot, like that makes things complicated too, because you're no longer in the purity of I will do this one task for 5 years.
Yeah. I think actually, so y'all are just seeing some like live us actually talking about the show right now. I
Mhm.
think we need more nuanced language around what's a pivot and what's adjusting what we're trying to do.
Oh
Because
yeah, yeah.
you have a negative connotation of pivots in your mind that like it's very clear that when you're worried about you, hey, I'm like
Mhm.
jumping from thing to thing, like
Mhm.
when you say pivot, I hear Kristen being like, hey, I feel like I'm screwing this thing up.
Uh, sort of. So
Okay.
here's the thing, if I was working on solo projects, like I'm 100% okay with like going all over the place and pivoting because I
You
feel like
shouldn't be.
huh?
I
I should not be?
sorry for interrupting. Let finish the thought and then
Okay,
I
okay.
will give the
Okay,
opinion. It was
so
unfair.
I understand it's not optimal, but then like
Yeah.
it's still like it matters a lot less in some sense because I'm just responsible for myself and I own my own
Yep.
consequences of pivoting.
Yeah.
Whereas it's almost like when you're working with someone, it's like a three-legged race.
Yeah.
And then like if I wanna like go somewhere else, and then like I always feel like, oh gosh, it's like it's annoying to work with someone who is changing their mind all the time. Which I've experienced, especially in a large corporation, when your CEO is changing their mind all the time. It's like hell because you never gain momentum on your task enough to see the outcomes, right?
Hmm.
So that is the difference. And I think, of
So
course, that the nuance, which I think you're trying to point out. Oh, and then hi Naomi, is that like pivoting or like changing direction based on an objective market condition or an objective like observation of something is not optimal, that's great. But then sometimes, 90% of the time, I would propose a change that is based on like the vibes or intuition or it feels that way. And
Yeah.
that's where you are like, oh, like you question, which rightly so, like, oh, is this real, or did Kristen conjure up an entire sequence of cause and effect that have nothing to do with reality?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different analogies here that I think are useful.
Mm-hmm.
One, interestingly, is that like leadership is an art and a science. Like that is explicitly the Army's definition of leadership. It is like
Mm-hmm.
the art and science of getting a group of people to come together towards like a common goal.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why they have the art in there is that there's always aspects of reality that like have to be qualitative, because you're not going to like, either you don't have the ability to gather the data, or like there
Mm-hmm.
is just no data and you just got to make a call.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I view a lot of what we do and a lot of what I do in the startup world as like the concept of finding product market fit with a product. You can be data driven, but that doesn't mean you get to ignore those like very real qualitative signals, those feelings, that intuition that you're talking about. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like I correct me if I'm wrong, but like I feel like very rarely I come back and say, Kristen, I don't think this is real, or I think you're wrong. I think it's much more of a asking the question that you want asked, which is like, is the thing that is triggering this line of thinking outside of Kristen, or is it in like anxiety that has popped up because something else isn't going the way that we thought it would? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's fair or not. But all of it does kind of come back to, I think, the other half of the simplification question, because we got the no half. I think like that's pretty clear. How do we decide what to say no to? I think that kind of revolves around this idea of knowing where you want to go explicitly. What do you think about that?
I think that is one of those like simple on the surface but very
Mhm.
complex underneath things.
Okay.
I think that that's where like maybe a few years ago when I was younger, I'll be like, I want to achieve X,
Yeah.
and then I wouldn't realize that if you unpack all the layers, what I'm trying to achieve is a certain feeling and all those kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah, so which is of course like I think that's a lifelong journey, and
Sure.
we always address that, well, we're never getting done. So there's also like balancing those different things. But it's sort of like the explicit goal is usually pretty clear, right? It's like people want to achieve success in a certain way,
Yeah.
and you do everything towards that. But like the means of which, or like the correct task to achieve that, is what our daily complexity comes from.
I agree and I disagree.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think the, if you're gonna make up like a Kristen's hierarchy of goal setting needs,
Mm-hmm.
the why, the eternal why, the capital Y, capital WY, is a lifelong process of discovering like the things that you care about. That is gonna keep changing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's beautiful. But we live in a world where we got to do stuff and things and occupy our time and also not starve to death.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, in the absence of like a capital WY, I think it is perfectly fine, if not like good, to put stuff in to that target spot
Mm-hmm.
as a placeholder.
Mm-hmm.
And like you want that placeholder to be generally in the direction of where you think your capital WY is,
Mm-hmm.
but it's fine to do it wrong for a few years. Wrong, quotation marks, because like, I mean, we've talked about our moral relativism about the world, or like our frameworks. Like, I don't like, however you want to spend your time, if you're happy doing it, great. But having that goal in there, even if it's like, hey, I want to get 10K in my savings account, just like something like concrete. It's not going to give you like self actualization to achieve it, but it's going to help you maybe like do other things that you want to do eventually later. I think that's really, really important, because if you have nothing in that, like that
Mhm.
what spot,
Mhm.
we'll say why and then what.
Mhm.
Uh, all of your hows are going to be like a fucking mess, man. Like,
Mhm.
anytime you don't know a little bit of a what, every decision I think comes with the weight of every decision in your life because you haven't like simplified it down to the specific problem of does it help you get towards that what. Um, that was a little all over the place, but like, we'd love your reaction to that thought.
Mm. I think like that much is clear, but I think even the unpacking, like let's just say the 10K savings part, right? Like for me, like that is no longer the goal. It's not like make a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
It is more like thinking one step ahead and being like, okay, what can I do to not trade money, time for money,
Hmm.
which implies building some sort of asset that can generate money without
Okay.
without such a time correlation. And therefore that's why it gets a little bit more complex, right? Because now
Yeah.
like the tasks, like will it actually lead to the outcome? Like that is I think the gap sometimes.
Hmm. Okay.
And I feel like
So
that's the thing. If you're a creator, like those are the implicit things that these simple course things don't ever tell you. They're always like,
yeah, they
there's a
can't
lot of
sell the
these courses
course.
on it, huh?
Sorry, continue.
Oh
I'm
no,
making
what do
bits.
what do you say though?
I was saying if they told you that, they couldn't sell the next course.
Exactly. A lot of these courses, like, aim towards creators are like, you just need to get X number of coaching clients, or like, you just need to build a community or whatever, right? But they never address the complexity behind actually achieving these goals. So, which, takes practice. I feel like that's what I've been watching my friends as they try to embark on these journeys. That I'm like, well, I learned some things the hard way, but I also can't tell you because you won't believe me until you're there. So,
I think that's fair. I kind of view it as like I mean, you know me, I'm like
Mhm,
pragmatic to my own detriment
mhm,
sometimes. But like, you have on one end, you have
mhm,
this like ivory tower artist creator that they don't care about anything in the world. I'm assuming they don't have a trust fund, so they're
mhm,
living in like a very small apartment, but they wake up every day and they paint their beautiful paintings.
mhm,
That's like one extreme. Uh, they don't make any money from it, but they get infinite intrinsic value from it, and that's their perfect life.
mhm,
And then you have on the other end the person who would like to do creative pursuits, but they've optimized fully for making money. And so
mhm.
they get almost no satisfaction from the work that they do, but they are achieving their like financial goals.
Right.
Both of those are like super clear examples of things to understand. And like, is one better than the other? It really depends on the person, like living in that
Mhm,
state.
mhm,
Because if that like serene, isolated artist person has any inclination of like, oh, it would be nice to not sleep on the futon, like then their situation isn't perfect for them.
mhm,
Uh, most people, I think, live on a continuum between those two things of like one, their like general ability level, their ability to wear a skin suit in corporate America and or like
mhm,
in the corporate world and like make money doing stuff that they hate. And so like knowing that most people live on this spectrum, it's unfortunately this like multivariable linear optimization problem of like, okay, can I find something that like makes enough so I can spend a ton of time doing that? So I was in like band, marching band, all that stuff growing up. I had a saxophone tutor who I would go to for like jazz tutoring afterwards. This
yeah.
was his life. He loved being a sax player in a jazz band.
Mhm,
He, had like a respectable like home. I did all of our lessons in his garage, and he would tour with his like jazz band around the southeast, and then he'd come back and do lessons like all weekend. And
mhm,
that was like
mhm,
how he same thing with like all that stuff.
mhm,
I think we're getting to a place where those aren't the only options. Like it's the creator economy doesn't really work the way that it is today,
mhm,
but it's more visible than it's ever been. And the way that people want to live their lives ends up being kind of a function of like how hard they can do the creative thing that they want to do, and like what money can get squeezed out of that in a way that is authentic to how they want to create stuff.
Right. So that in a saxophone tutor example, like one
Yep.
creator economy way of doing it is to do your tutorials on, make short form videos, etc.,
Yep.
and then like sell a course that is, like a pre-recorded one, so that it's essentially infinitely scalable. It's a very Naval
Yep.
thing, I guess.
Yeah, I appreciate you making that tangible. We have been living kind of in like an abstract discussion up till
Right,
now.
right. And I also really I opened up a lot of like Kristen problems, but I also want to make this like practical of like these are the things that we have solved collectively.
Yeah.
So let's do rapid fire. What do you think between the two of us? What have we made simpler? Or individually? What have you made simpler?
I mean, so I think we've said no to every other platform, but except for YouTube and Farcaster.
Well,
like we're posting on
part,
those.
yeah.
We're posting on the other ones, but that
Mhm.
I view it as like, I mean, we talked about this, like what is the minimum viable effort or like the minimum amount of effort we're going to put into these other platforms, because we can't think about all of these things just between the two of us. And so like the unfortunate part of simplification is that there's an embedded bet with the things that you're simplifying with. And part of the reason why you don't want to simplify things is because you're collapsing down all of the possibilities and all of the outcomes that could happen into your life into a discrete set of outcomes.
Right.
That feels bad and scary because you are putting skin in the game and you might lose.
Correct. I also Naomi brings up a great point here. As an artist in the creator economy, though you need to build content capital first before you even have a potential audience with things that often don't relate to the thing you create. Yeah, exactly. It's like we're no longer buying art; we're buying the artist's story. And then I think those who are able to give us the package with the lore, like those are the ones who are able to get the most attention, is my understanding. And there's also a lot of like scheming in the background for some of these artists as well.
Yeah. And that's also what Naomi points out is kind of the reason why traditional versions of most media that now have a digital component, whether it's like comedy or art or music or whatever, they don't like the new version of it because all of the systems have been catered around the existing mostly distribution structures.
Right, right.
And like concretely for like stand-up comedy, which we both have an affinity for, like you can become a funny person on the internet by making funny videos in a way that you used to have to like basically suck for like years in comedy clubs, like doing shows in these small places. And now you can do the opposite where you build an audience and then go on tour. Like that was impossible. Literally, it was literally impossible 20 years ago.
Exactly. And even SNL, I think the new cast members, one of them is actually TikTok famous as a skit member first. And now they're hiring her because SNL needs TikTok views. So
that's a fact.
Yeah. So the creator economy is bleeding into the traditional media economy, which is good. I think it's favorable for all of us here.
I think it's eating it.
Oh, well then. Yeah.
I have this is for another show, but I have a lot of opinions about why content creators, big, general bucket, beat traditional media on a long enough timeline for sure.
Yes. And which helps for my consulting work too, because I can pitch, like this kind of approach. And I think the other thing that has come up for us is like simplifying the implicit goals. I think you helped me with that.
Yeah.
Remember when I tied like a lot of this show with monetary success? That's how you get a crazy Kristen. Like so it's sort of like that kind of simplification has been super useful. To be like to not, because sort of like we all have like a bucket of like 5 Maslow hierarchy of needs sort of goals, and not to tie everything that we do to every single one, because then it becomes a titration of every single task to meet every single one, and it gets really complicated.
I like to think about it in terms of min-maxing. And so like if there's any like board game or video game fans in the audience, like the concept of min-maxing is crafting a character around being able to do a specific thing or a specific set of things that are like complementary.
Right.
And so like in my life with like what we're doing with OK Banger, like the min-max for me is like, this is so that I get a creative outlet that is like authentically giving me intrinsic, hey, I really enjoy doing this. I like talking with people. I like talking about the show because I'm having a great time with you, Kristen. But like the way that I am sustaining myself is not tied up in this, like, which is what we were just talking about with what you were saying. And so like figuring out how to slice and dice the parts of your life that you're doing, like, I think it's maybe the most important thing in simplifying what you do, because you'll find that some of the things that you're doing don't fit into any of the buckets of stuff that you actually care about. And if you find a activity that you're doing regularly doesn't contribute to like your relationship bucket, or doesn't contribute to your money bucket, or doesn't contribute to your creative bucket, maybe it's one of the things that, if possible, you cut out. Or if it's like contributing to the money bucket just enough, like just put in the bare minimum at the job, right? Like, or switch it to something that more facilitates something else. Like, I think that the patent clerk Einstein route is really underexplored today for a lot of people. Like I considered the Army my version of that in a way.
Yeah. So one thing I'm trying to do a better job of simplifying is our call to action. If you're still here, could you please consider subscribing to the channel? I don't know where I'm pointing.
Please, I'm begging you.
Or put a thumbs up, because that might algorithmically help.
As a comment, not in the chat, as a comment.
Oh, but that they can only do that afterwards though. So you do the thumbs up now, and then like, if you have time, leave a comment on any of our videos. And then also, Cameron, we need to do a better job actually replying people in the comments.
I've been doing it. I just haven't been telling you.
Oh, okay. But I think it has to come from our account, and I realized that you've been doing it from your account. Anyway, these are the nuances of focusing and simplifying on YouTube growth. You end up with 1,000 YouTube tasks.
Yeah. Okay. So last thing on my end, is there anything else you want to get into?
Gosh, I feel like you and I have lots to get into.
Facts. Big facts.
Mm-hmm.
Also, y'all, if you you're definitely unaware because we haven't said anything about it, but we're recording all of our after action reviews from these episodes. And if y'all are interested in seeing those, definitely let us know on like Farcaster and then the YouTube comments, because we're trying to figure out how to leverage those.
Yeah, like, so it's the real behind the scenes of what we actually talk about when there's no audience at all. And maybe that's actually, well, I don't know. I feel like I like behind the scenes content, but it's also a lot messier because the context is a lot more unclear. What do you think?
I think it is a content does jobs. This show has a specific job that it does for people. Behind the scenes content does a different job, and I think it's unfair to compare that job to this job.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, and then Naomi mentions a book called Good Enough Job. Yeah, I've read that book. It's pretty interesting. So it talks about putting in the optimal amount of effort. And Dark Grits, the next episode, which we'll end on right now, as I play the outro music.
Tuesday at 11, y'all. Eastern time.
Thank you so much for joining us. Dark Chris, Naomi, Hin.
Thank you so much, y'all.
Bubbles.
Love you. Appreciate you.
Dahlia.
You do everything for you.
Tsunade. Lost Soul.
No, for real.
Tori.
Y'all are great.
Yeah,
this has been a lot of fun.
Ivy. And also, I want to acknowledge all the people who are like not commenting in the chat, but are actually watching as well. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, we appreciate you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.